Get ready for the world's greatest Arsenal podcast. Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. My name is Fergus. I'm joined today by Gunnar Hilsey and Capo Dan. It's the three of us in the room today. We're a little bit downbeat but hopeful for the game tomorrow. It's Friday night and we're going to talk Arsenal. We're going to talk the Arsenal-Man City game. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the indifferent about it, and then we're going to look ahead to the Villa game. We've got a few videos to show you. They're short and they mightn't have audio. And we're on YouTube only. So if you're watching the video, it's YouTube only because Facebook got really, really nasty with me and threatened to shut down the Facebook page and everything else. So if you like and want to follow this normally, just click on the little bell and you'll get a reminder that it turns up each time. Join in the chat and have your say. We'll be more than happy to talk to you. Dan, you any more upbeat than at what was it, 9:30 on Wednesday night?
Yeah, I am a bit better. Football affects my mood way too much, even yesterday. But watching the game back, I'm a bit more happy and a bit more logical, I think, in my thoughts when you first lose a game like that. And yeah, it's quite disappointing. But yeah, on to tomorrow.
Trev, we've even got a video here at half time. You'd had 2 lemonades, no beer, and you're all right.
Yeah, sounds a plan. Listen, boys, you can't still be downbeat, you know. Don't be downbeat about us losing a game. I was upset and I was disappointed when we lost. I was disappointed for some of yesterday, but at the end of the day, we're the Arsenal. We'll bounce back. A little side that we're a young side. We got beat by a better side on the night, and that's the end of it. I don't even think we played that badly. 1 or 2 players didn't play to their best. I was disappointed, yeah, but I'm not downbeat tonight, honestly. I'm looking forward to Saturday. That's what I'm doing. Looking forward to tomorrow.
Well, it was a good game. It was a huge game. Lawrence, we will talk about that probably later in this podcast, briefly touch on the Europa League. We'll probably keep that for probably the next podcast, because we should have maybe the next podcast or the podcast afterwards if the Europa League will affect our title chances, because we'll know come next Wednesday or Thursday an indication of who we're going to have, and the draw's on Friday, so we'll know exactly who we've got come Friday. Is it Friday next week, Trev?
A week today, the draw's at midday. This time next week, we'll know where we're going on March the 9th.
Okay. I probably won't be able to join you on that European tour this leg, but hopefully as we continue all the way to Budapest, we should be going. Gutted. Right, listen, the three of us met up in Liverpool Street beforehand because you were in Essex for the day and I come in from Essex, and so does Dan. So Liverpool Street was a good venue to meet. We had a couple of beers and then headed up to the stadium. But Trev, we bumped into somebody while we were there. You're sitting there and you're going, I recognise this guy.
Yeah, I just sat there and thought, I know that face over there. And it turned out to be Tony Cottee, didn't it? And, looked at him and thought, yeah, ex-footballer, what a good player he was. But you'd had a few, hadn't you, Fergus? So you had to go over and put your Irish charm on him and have a chat with him. And so we ended up having a quick chat. Well, only a very quick chat with him, but he was a lovely man. What have you done with Dan?
I've done nothing. I think his internet has just dropped, or his computer's done an update or something like that. But yeah, I had the same amount of beers. I had the same amount of beer as you had, mate. Hello, Donna. You're live. Hi. I just walked up to him and said that you thought he looked like Tony Cottee, and he said I might do. And then you came over and I said it is, because of the way he said it. I might do. And you said to him you'd taken a sneaky photograph and you're going to send it to Kevin Campbell, who's a friend of ours. He said, well, you're friends with Kevin? He said, yeah. He said, we'll take a proper photo then and send it to him. And this is the photo we took. It's a great photograph, actually. Great photograph.
Must add, we did explain that Kevin Campbell was a friend of the show and he's a friend of us on social media. I would love to call Kevin Campbell more of a friend than that, because he's an absolute gentleman. And one day maybe we will. But yeah, he was lovely. He said he knew Kevin, and Kevin was a mate of his. And I said, well, you seem as nice a bloke as him. And it was nice. What was it? A 2-minute chat, Fergus? 2 minute chat.
3 minutes, yeah, just so long. He was with family and he was having a few drinks. He asked us if we were Gooners and we're heading up to the stadium and everything else. So yeah, it was good. Lineups. Dan, what did you expect of these lineups? There was some changes. Ben White was dropped. Tommy Asu was brought in. Jorginho was brought in for Partey. Obviously, Partey was a late injury. Otherwise, it remained more or less the same. What did you make of the lineup? Were you pleased that Ben White was dropped? And how did you feel about Partey getting injured?
Yeah, firstly, sorry about that. My Windows decided to have a restart just at the right moment. So, yeah. Like you said, obviously offended my laptop. Yeah, the lineup, to be fair, I wouldn't have made any changes at all for the City game. As I said last time, if we could help it. I think for me, the time to make changes was the Brentford game. Having said that, obviously Partey being injured, I don't think there's any other option. That's what Jorginho was brought in for. So I can understand that one. I understand the Tommy change. I just feel like it was a game too late. So for me, I wouldn't have made that change.
Trev, what did you make of the changes? Were you're Mr. 100% positive, so you probably think it was brilliant move, didn't you?
Well, I didn't expect Tommy Asu to play, to be honest, but I wasn't disappointed that Tommy Asu played because I think he does just as good a job as Ben White. So I thought maybe Ben White might have had a little niggle that we don't know about or a bit of a doubt, blah, blah, blah. So in came Tommy Asu. I was worried about how Juninho was going to play, and I've had to watch the game back to find out that he actually didn't do too badly. But where I would have liked to have seen a change, Fergus, as I said last week, and I've said again now, was up front, mate. I don't think we've performed to our best up front in the middle of the park, and I don't think it would have hurt to have changed it. But Arteta didn't, and he's the boss.
There was a stat that came up. Dan Harry from the Black Boots page put this up. I think this is post the game, but we hadn't won against City since a 2-1 win at home in the home league since City. We played 19, won 2 games, both in the FA Cup semi-finals, even against the odds, and we went on to win the final against Chelsea against the odds in the FA Cup final. Drawn 2, lost 15. Scored 14 and conceded 44 goals. It's an awful lot of goals to concede against a Man City side, and especially a side that now had this prolific striker in Haaland. Dan, were you worried about what the scoreline might be going into it?
No, to be honest, I think I said before the game I expected us to be able to get a result against them. I feel more positive about us as a team, or felt more positive about us as a team going into the game than worrying about them. I feel like on our ground, we can beat any team in the world.
Yeah. And the atmosphere. Trev, you haven't been to the stadium for a competitive game this season. And yes, you could see that the atmosphere was improved last season with the introduction of the Ashburton Derby and people coming back after COVID, etc., etc., etc. Myself and Dan thought it was a little bit flat on the concourse in comparison to some other games, but it still was, well, we got in late as well, which does make a difference, but it still was a great atmosphere. What did you make of the atmosphere?
I thought the atmosphere was really good, mate. I mean, even when we went goals down, the Arsenal fans were still trying to lift the players. And that's a real sign, just after the opposition scored a goal, is a real sign of where your support is. And I thought our support was really good on the night. I can't compare it to anything because I've not been to any other home games this season, Fergus. But from what I saw as a first look, I thought our fans were very positive, and I thought they did their very best to raise our side. Mate, I need to chip in on that last point about the statistics that you asked Dan, in that I was that confident we would get a result. I've been down. I'm recorded as saying I didn't think we'd lose the game. I didn't think we could lose the game. And I absolutely didn't think we could lose the game. I was full of hope and expectation. And that's where you can challenge those statistics you just mentioned about all the goals conceded and all the games we lost. The last 3 games we've lost against Manchester City, right? I don't know. I honestly think that on another day we win all 3 of them games. The game last season where we lost 2-1 at the Emirates was a travesty. We lost in the cup. God, it was a toss of a coin. It could have gone either way. We lost in the cup. and we lost on Wednesday night this week because I think Man City found a way to beat us halfway through the second half, or about 15 minutes in the second half. Man City changed their tactics, and we weren't quite clever enough to match them, to play against them. On another night, we do, and we win that game. So it might sound like sour grapes. We've lost 3 games. You have to hold your hands up and say that. But where it's changed is that now when we play Man City, I go into a game full of hope. When we played Man City at their place at the start of last season and we got hammered, we all knew we wouldn't win that game. We all knew we didn't have a hope in hell of getting anything out of that game. And that's where it's changed. Now, and even next time we play Man City up at their place, I still think we've got a great chance of getting a result. And that's where it's all changed, Fergus. We'll be all right. Well, honestly, we will. Please.
Oh, hang on. I've got something going on the other screen. 1 second. So, Eddie, Dan, while I line this up, because talk to me what you thought about the atmosphere, and in particular the North London Forever that started off at the start of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concourse, first of all, it certainly wasn't bad. I think it was a bit quieter at times compared to what we've had at times this year, but nothing majorly disappointing for a midweek game. Thought it was still quite good, but yeah, the actual atmosphere in the ground when the game kicked off, I thought was great. The fans supported the team, got behind them, but yeah, I don't know if it was just the occasion for me, but that was one of sort of the loudest I thought I'd heard North London Forever, and also give me the tingles a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. I mean, I'm talking as someone that's been with my first home game this season. I couldn't agree with you more, Dan. The hairs on the back. Well, what hair I've got on the back of my neck stood on anyway. It was wonderful.
All 3 of them. How does it come across then, Trev, in the ground compared to on the telly?
Oh, just the same. You can tell on the telly that our fans are really doing it this season, and that was proven in the ground on Wednesday night. Absolutely proven in the ground on Wednesday night. The support was all over, and I looked around the ground, and it was all around the ground. The support. It weren't just the Ashburton Army or blocks 5, 6, and 7, or blocks 1 and 2. It was blocks all around the ground. The fans were getting behind the team, and that's what we need.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that bugs me though, from watching this back, and I've seen it on a few games when I've watched the games back. When are we going to get the respect that Liverpool get when they sing their anthem, where Sky stop talking and they just let people listen to it in the background? I'd love them to hear us do it. You know, prime opportunity on Wednesday, just stop the commentators from speaking and let the crowd noise be heard on the telly.
It's really interesting. Sorry, Ferg, can I interject again there?
Yeah, carry on.
It's interesting you should say that as well, Dan. In that, when we played at Liverpool in the League Cup semi-final last year, when we played the game at their place, when they played You'll Never Walk Alone before the game, as they do, they couldn't get the tannoy loud enough. I've got a video of that on my phone, and halfway through You'll Never Walk Alone, it's booming. You can hear Arsenal, Arsenal. And that's how good our fans can be. I've never known You'll Never Walk Alone shouted down at Liverpool. It was amazing. It was amazing support for our team. So, and you're right, having that anthem, it sort of gives you a bit of expectation, and it gives you a bonus. Before the game starting, I wasn't waiting for kickoff before the start of the game. I was waiting for the anthem. I was waiting for North London Forever. I wanted it to happen. And when it happened, the whole ground lifted, you know, and that's when you need to kick off a game. We've got that anthem now. The whole crowd sings it, and they're lifted. Kick the game off while the crowd's up there. They want to sing. You know, that's where it's needed right before the start of the game. Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking a lot again. I'm stopping now.
What's new, Trev? You do like to have a natter, don't you?
What's talking shit for?
We've got a new one of those. We have got a new one. I'm just trying to find. Dan, can you send me that stat about the possession? You know, the way it flows between the games, because I want to talk about that at some point as well. I'm trying to find it here on WhatsApp. But at 21 minutes in, Eddie, that's it. Yeah, thanks. 21 minutes in, Eddie has a fantastic opportunity to head the ball and bring us 1-0 ahead. Now, myself and Trev and even like Dan after the game, but Trev and I today were talking, and this isn't digging out Eddie sort of moment, but it's a clear fact that Eddie on 2 occasions, one in the first half, one in the second half, just didn't have a shooting boots or shooting head on. Let's have a look at this. There's no sound. Dan, talk me through your thoughts on this, and then I'll go to Trev. There we go. So a cross comes into Eddie and Nketiah. I'll just play it one more time again. So the cross comes in there. Eddie just shoots it and goes over the bar. There's nobody on him. He's not marked by anybody or anything. Surely he should have done better than that.
I don't mind people missing chances because you're never, ever going to score every opportunity. But for me, it's the timing of that chance where I feel like we were on top. And when you're on top against a side as good as City, you have to take your chances. And the only way to change games is to score goals. Really, that is the difference between winning and losing titles and trophies year in, year out, is that you take chances when you're on top of the game and you make it count. I think Eddie's a good finisher. I don't think that's certainly not his weakness. He needs to do better. And he's only young, and I don't want to criticise him, as Trev said. I think he has stepped in and done very well. But that's a prime example where if you want to be a leading striker for Arsenal, you got to put them away. Or at
Trev,
least
without going in on Eddie too much, another player that came into a little bit of criticism was Tomiyasu. He's back in the side after a few weeks out, and Ben White had done a great job. And in the last few games, people have questioned maybe to rotate him, maybe he was getting a bit tired. Tomiyasu did this, trying to put a ball back to Ramsdale. Not Martinelli, Ramsdale. I haven't made that mistake tonight. Let's have a talk about this, and then you can talk about
there's still time.
Caught back pass from Tomiyasu, and it's...
Go on, Trev.
I can't not talk about Eddie here, Fergus.
Go on.
It's conjecture in the that's not Eddie. That's a defence. That's Tommy.
No, I know.
But like you just said, we have to be so careful because we're known as a podcast that doesn't go heavy on any of our players or our team as such, right? But it has to be said that we are allowed to say what we think about their performances. Yeah, and I honestly think that any top striker in the Premier League gets that header on target. Doesn't necessarily score a goal, but he gets that header on target. He makes the goalkeeper make a save because there's no challenge on him at all there. That is an easy header. I'm sorry, but it is, right? And there was a little bit later in the game. I don't know if you've lined it up, Fergus. I didn't see it.
I haven't. No, I've just lined one up.
Later in the game when he should have passed to Martinelli, he was on my box and shot, and the shot was nothing. And Martinelli would have had a tap in. Any top striker in the league, sees that space now in the Premier League. You don't get so many greedy strikers. You get strikers finding people in space if they've got a better opportunity. So I think that for the last 2 or 3 games, Eddie has been one of the major issues in our side. He's not a young lad, by the way. He's 23, coming up 24. And I just think that, how can I put it? I just think that Jesus would have given us a much better chance of winning that game on Wednesday night for reasons which we'll discuss in a bit. And a top striker would have either put that header away or squared the ball for Martinelli. Either. One of them would have come off. Because, you're looking at 1 in 2 good chances normally, and the striker's going to bang it in the net. So, yeah, we have to say that about Eddie. I love the lad.
He deserves credit, Trev. He's deputised for Jesus. He scored 7 and 7, but unfortunately he hasn't scored in the last 4. So people are going to start calling him out. Probably, I don't know if they're right to call him out or not, but people will call them out. That's just the nature of it. But what did you make of Tomiyasu's error of judgment to pass it short to Ramsdale?
It can happen to any defender, Fergus. They have those blind moments. They have their moments, and especially where Arsenal's tactics are to lay the ball back to the keeper. That's Arsenal's tactics. Not for Tommy Asu to take a couple of touches and try and turn or whack it into touch. Arsenal's tactics are to feed it back to the keeper or feed it to another player in space, no matter how deep you are in the field. So, although I was disappointed with Tommy Asu, I wasn't angry at him, and he has my full sympathy because we all know that Tommy Asu is a better player than that. Tommy Asu is a better player than that, and that's not a regular occurrence. I think you're possibly someone's going to shout me out here, but I can't recall him making another major error like that in all the times he played for Arsenal. So come on, we're going to give the lad a break, I reckon, and get behind him as we did. And then there's another example for the fans, Dan. Like you said, when Tommy Asu made that mistake, when we weren't up there, when we weren't making shouts for competition wins, he'd have got, not booed, but they'd have been on his back all game. As soon as that happened, that incident happened, straight from the kickoff, the crowd are Tommy, Super Tom, they're right lifting him again, you know. So proud of the fans, and Tommy Ashu's all right.
That was really Dan. You'll know from being at the games this season. Anytime that we have gone behind, the crowd have got behind with Arsenal, home or away, we've got behind them. Even Everton, when it was really flat last week, not last week, a couple of weeks ago, the fans still got behind them, and that was exceptional, wasn't it, Super Tom?
Yeah, I think the media paint a really bad picture of our fans, and that comes from social media. Whereas for me, the real fans that go week in, week out get behind the team and have shown all season that they get behind the team. And as a player, that can only lift you. You know, we've seen it from the start of the season where Saliba scored an own goal and then he got cheered and he came back. And even the players, you know, Zinchenko going over to Tommy and, you know, trying to pick him up and saying, come on, let's go again. People make mistakes. And as Trevor said, he shouldn't be criticised for making a mistake. I think it's just down to composure. And sometimes a game like that can get the best of most players. Everyone knows how big a game that was. The players would have been told how big a game it was. Well, not even told, they would have known how big a game it was. So at times, I think a bit more composure, but that is what they will learn as they gain more experiences of these top games. And people do forget that we are still an inexperienced side. You know, people talking in the chat about Eddie saying, "Oh, he's 23, he's not that young." He hasn't played that much top level football in the Premier League. He hasn't played Champions League football. He's barely played in that many games in Europe. So he might be 23. I mean, for me, 23 is still young anyway. But he hasn't played that much football.
Oh, brilliant!
Well said. Well said.
Brilliant.
Go on.
Sorry for biting in again. I'm terrible recently, and I'm blaming my age and my dementia. But it's important what Dan said there. You know, in that we may not have the side might be developing age-wise, but Dan's exactly right. Up until this season, the only two players that we've ever had that have experienced about going to try and win a title are Zinchenko and Jesus. Right? None of the other players in this side have experienced a title challenge and the pressure of being top of the league, and not just top of the league for a week. We've been top of the league for weeks and weeks, you know. So there is a pressure. I mean, poor old Ramsdale, all he's ever experienced is bloody relegation. He's never known what it's like to be top of the league and have the focus on you week in, week out. And just to finish off, not forgetting, it's not only focus, it's focus on the Arsenal. And the press love to find wrong in the Arsenal, whatever we do. So there's pressure on him, you know. And Dan, that's a great point, Dan, a really great point.
Edison, the Man City keeper, had tried what other keepers were doing and using some time-wasting tactics about keeping the ball for really long. I don't think he was keeping as long as the likes of Pickford and many others who have come. But he got a yellow card, and not long after that, there was this foul on Eddie, since we're still talking about Eddie, but a foul on Eddie, who was very close to actually scoring a goal. I think it was cleared off the line, but the foul was given. So, Dan, I'll talk to you first on it. Talk about the foul, Eddie's attempt, and whether you feel it was a foul, whether you feel it was a penalty, and whether you feel it should have been a second yellow card and therefore a red.
Yeah, I think firstly he does well to get on target. You know, that is sort of the bread and butter for Eddie in those sort of positions, and I think he does well. For me, it's a stonewall penalty, but I do think credit to the referee on that, because there are some people that don't give the same fouls in the box that they would outside the box. And anywhere else on the pitch, if a player is that late and doesn't get the ball, it's a foul. So I don't see why it changes in the box and it's a Stonewall pen. Having said that, I don't think it's a second yellow. I don't feel it's reckless enough or endangering an opponent or anything like that where you would look to book a player. I think if that was in the middle of the pitch again, it's coming together. Had he sort of actually kicked him, I think it would have been a second yellow. So I think people sort of calling for a red are probably clutching there for me.
Trev, your thoughts on it?
I wasn't sure if it was a penalty or not when it was given. We're looking at it in real time in the ground, but looking at it now, it's one that we've gotten with our lack of penalties. Probably fortunate to get because the referees don't give us a lot. I know I keep on about that, but I don't care. But we did get it. As for Eddie, what he did with the ball, he got it on target. Yeah, it was never going to go in because there was always going to be a defender clearing it. It wasn't a second yellow card. But having said that, their goalkeeper, he should have got his yellow card for time wasting after about 10 minutes. He'd been doing it all the first half. Since the start of the game, he'd been time wasting, and the fans were on his back and on his back and on his back. And he should have got that yellow card long before he actually got it for time wasting.
He did get his first yellow early on in the game, and which normally they wait, especially for time wasted, they normally wait till 85 minutes or whatever. So it was good to see that. But I turned around, I think, to you, Dan, and said, well, he ain't going to get a second for it. Reading some articles and looking at some stuff today, doing some work for the show. The comments that I've read from people who are a bit more knowledgeable than some of us, and definitely more knowledgeable than lots of people on Twitter about that penalty. That yes, it was given. The on-field referee gave it. It was fortunate for Arsenal, and should it have not been given, VAR wouldn't have examined it. Should VAR been asked to examine it, they wouldn't have awarded the penalty. But that aside, it was given, and it took about 3-4 minutes. The referee moved the ball to check it was on the spot. There was all sorts of people coming up talking to Saka and really putting him off. And how cool and calm is this fella? Look at this. No sound again, but here we go.
Yeah. Don't put sound on, Ferg. You'll get us banned.
Do you want to do a voiceover, Ferg?
No, it's all right. There we go. But look at Edison. Edison is pointing. I know where you're going to put it. I know you're going to put it. And he dives the other way. And Saka goes, "Yeah, I know. You knew, but I still went that way." He was so cool. I was just so impressed how low and strong that was. Trev?
Yeah. Listen, when you've got possibly the best player in the country taking a penalty, he ain't going to get put off by the goalkeeper. You ain't got to get it. Some of our fans are still underrating Bukayo Saka. He's up amongst the best 2 or 3 players in the country, Bukayo Saka. And when he took that penalty, I knew he'd go in. I wish he'd have taken that second penalty in the World Cup, and then we'd probably got through. He's that good. I had no doubts about him scoring. He's as cool as you like, isn't he? Look at him in his interviews, how he's matured into such a sensible young fella, you know? Yeah. We weren't going to miss that.
And what did you make of the penalty, Dan? Again, we're standing beside each other. We were delighted. It went nuts in the North Bank of Block 5.
Well, I didn't watch it in the ground because I couldn't, so I only saw it when I got home. I hate watching pens, especially like that. I didn't watch the one he scored against Liverpool in the ground. I just hate watching pens. But something did really, really annoy me when I got home and I watched. I think it was Eni Aluko. She said she wasn't confident in Saka taking the pen because he's got a history with penalties. And everyone's going to keep going back to him at the Euros with England. I think he's missed 1 penalty in his career. I think that's the only one. So to say he's got a history with penalties, I just don't see where they're coming at. His penalties are fantastic.
It just demonstrates some of the quality of pundits that they have to wheel out these days. For various reasons, and for a pundit to say that clearly shows their lack of knowledge about 1, the player they're talking about, and 2, the game itself. We've seen it from all sorts of pundits, but you've just highlighted one in there in particular.
Yeah, I
So
mean, if
half
you look
time.
at his ratio, I think his ratio is up there higher than an awful lot of sort of established penalty takers in the Prem. I know he's probably not taking that many. I could probably think of maybe 5 or 6. But I bet his ratio is a lot.
I don't recall him missing many for the Arsenal, put it that way. And the only one I do recall him missing is that England one where he was brought on 4 penalties and he played about 2 or 3 minutes and then it was into the penalty shootout. So, yeah, huge game, huge pressure and everything else. Half time came along and I decided to grab Trev and ask him what he thought. It was a long, rambling video. I only took out a little clip. The audio's a little bit... The audio's a little bit... quiet, but that's because
Fergus
we're trying to
slowed
do
it down on purpose. I sound slurred because he slowed the bloody sound down. That Fergus.
Yes, Donna, that's why I done it.
If you're watching, Donna.
What did you make of the first half? Did you think we deserved to go 1-0 down in that game? Yes, we cocked up, but did you think we deserved to go 1-0 down?
In fairness, I thought he could have gone either way, Frank. There was absolutely nothing in it. Nothing in it. Could have gone either way. We were unlucky to give the goal away. You know, but we did, and what did we do? We came right back again. So proud of our boys.
First game at the Emirates this season.
Yeah, it is.
What is it like? Has it changed?
Ferg, I miss it so much. All the lads are so lovely. I'm going to give you a shot.
I'm not going to wash my head now.
Because I've been away and...
But the atmosphere, how's the atmosphere been?
It's better. It matches anything I've seen here. Everyone's up for it. And, you know, we are the Arsenal at the end of the day.
Trev, apparently these were the 2 pints you had, but you took so long to drink them, your hair's been shaved off and everything else.
My hair grew quick. It must have been something in the beer then. No, I honestly thought at half time that scoring that late goal in the first half would give us just the lift we needed to go into the second half and would fill our lads with confidence. And John Malone's put on here that I told him we were going to win at half time, and he's exactly right. I did tell him we were going to win at half time. I couldn't see us losing. I'm gutted. I'm not angry. Don't be angry, people. But I'm gutted that our young lads just couldn't pull it off second half. As we move through the second half, well, I dare say we'll talk about what I think. I don't know about you boys. We discussed it briefly. There was a distinct period in the second half where Manchester City changed things around and we couldn't match that. We couldn't change to match that. And the game changed in a click of a finger, you know, which is such a shame because our boys are so good. Our boys are so good. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah, I agree. Like the first 15 minutes or so, you know, there was a shift in sort of tactics. There's a lot more. I keep on using this word. I know shithousery going on by both sides. Like, you know, there was, I think it was Kyle Walker kicked the ball for a throw in straight across the other side of the pitch. There was just lots of time wasting and tactics that, you know, aren't becoming. But our manager wasn't exempt from that. Here's a clip of him playing. But as we said with Newcastle, it's a tactic that all teams use. Trev, what do you make of what Arteta did there?
I bloody love our manager. I absolute the crap-housery and the passion, and he'll do absolutely anything to gain that Arsenal side an inch of possession. Arteta, he will do absolutely anything to make sure that Arsenal have got a slightly better chance of winning the game. And who can't say they're happy with that? That is what we want as a manager. We want a manager with that passion and who's going to kick a ball away, you know? I love it. I love Arteta and I love what he gets up to. And what I love most about it is it upsets other clubs. So he's just living up to the reputation of the Arsenal. Don't ever change Mikel Arteta. Just keep it up.
I'll tell you what that does more than anything else, though, Trev. It lifts the crowd. And if you see the crowd's reaction to that and how loud everyone was singing Super Mick Arteta to that for me is the biggest reason of why you should keep doing it and forget everyone else. That just gets the crowd lifted again and can only lift the players.
Absolutely.
How will Richard Keys feel about it?
Who?
Does anyone care?
No, nobody cares.
Nobody cares. He's just an ex-football presenter who done naughty things that he shouldn't have done and got kicked off the British screens. And to be honest, good. Don't want him back.
57 minutes in, this happened. Gabby, I think, fouled Haaland. And for me, when I looked at it live and saw the replay on the screens, I thought, it's on somebody's phone, I thought it was a penalty. But what we couldn't see was that they'd gone for VAR and they put a VAR up here, which is you probably can't even see it on the screen. Haaland's here on the right-hand side and he's just very marginally offside. Offside nonetheless. And the penalty was ruled out because of offside. Dan, was that an apology for Brentford?
No, he was off. Clearly, they just actually got one right. And as the crowd started singing, "Don't forget to draw the lines," and they didn't this time.
Yeah, that was actually quite funny.
Oh, I'm fuming with you. I'm fuming
Go
with
on.
you, Keating. You can't make a comparison between that decision we've just looked at and what happened at Brentford. There's a massive difference, Fergus. And the massive difference is they got that one on Wednesday night right. They got that one against Brentford wrong under the most tragic circumstances ever. So there cannot be a comparison. VAR was used correctly on Wednesday. VAR was used incorrectly, if at all, last week against Brentford. You can't compare it. I'm still so angry with VAR, Fergus. Still, since you got me started on it, and I'd be interested to get you boys' view, right? If we get to the end of this season and we miss out on Champions League qualification by a point, what's the backlash going to be? What happens?
There's an argument to say that who was it? I think Martinelli scored against Liverpool, and there was a touch on Saka's hand, and that wasn't picked up by VAR. There's also a soft penalty against Liverpool. There are ones that we've got that we may well shouldn't have. Even that one, yes, he is offside, but it's so fine margins. Do you not argue? Forget about the VAR. Is that a penalty? Is that foul on Haaland? If there was no VAR, that is definitely a penalty, isn't it?
We don't know because the ref never give it, do we? You never know how refs are going to see things when human nature is allowed to intervene. When human nature is allowed to intervene, you never know what they're going to give. It looks like a penalty, but you don't know for sure. But you've got to remember, Fergus, what was the difference, right? You were talking about they were both offsides. What was the difference between Wednesday and Brentford? The difference was the one on Wednesday used the facilities available to him and drew the bloody lines on the pitch.
Yeah.
If we draw the lines on the pitch, which is a basic error, we can't linger on this because I'll end up smashing this computer. If we draw the lines on the pitch at Brentford, like he should have done, the most basic use of VAR, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't be ranting.
They are totally different, though, I think. You're talking about the ones at Liverpool and their subjective decisions. And, as Howard Webb said on the video we played last week, the idea of VAR is to make sure you go in half after the game and don't say, what the hell have I done? I've made a mistake. Those ones against Liverpool were not just mistakes. They were just people can see it differently. And that is why they talk about VAR maybe not intervening if it wasn't given, or if it was given, not changing the result, because that's subjective to the ref. But last week was just a clear error where they didn't do their job and didn't give something that was clearly offside. And I think this week on Wednesday, there's no doubt it's a foul. The ref gives it as a foul. And if he's not offside, that doesn't get overturned. For me, it's a clear foul. But we actually got very, very lucky looking back at that VAR decision. It was the right decision, but we got lucky that they got to that result, because when they really zoomed in to get the line, the reason it took them so long to give that offside was they tried to draw the line at Gabriel's foot and they only saw a very sort of minute part of his foot in the image. And had they not seen that part of his foot, they couldn't accurately draw the line to then say he's definitely offside, overturn it, in which case they would have just gone with the on-field decision.
Mm. Is that why that image on the screen in the stadium went graphic failure or something like that? Do you think that's what that was about?
I didn't see that, to be honest.
What did he say? Yeah, it said graphic something, didn't it? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, it said VAR checking offside, and we went, oh, right, okay. And then it went graphic failure, VAR checking penalty. Then it went back to offside. Then it went no penalty due to offside. It was really confusing. It just felt like, I don't know. But
Well,
listen,
they were obviously being very careful, weren't they, mate? Being very, very careful.
Absolutely.
And as Dan just said, they used the lines. And in the end, using the lines, the outcome of using the lines was the correct decision. Say that as a football fan. You can't argue against it. The lines were used on Wednesday night and the correct decision was reached, right? VAR as it should be. VAR as we'd all like it to be consistently. Against
despite the ongoing appeals from numerous Man City players crowding around the referee to ask for him to reevaluate his decision. Arsenal weren't not guilty of going around the referee, but look, there's 5 players in that one where I think the whole squad is around the referee in the City ones. But the FA have now taken and charged both Man City and Arsenal. Man City with 2 counts and Arsenal for 1 count of surrounding referee, and they've got until, when is it? The 21st of February to answer those charges. Trev, you wanted to talk about surrounding the referee, in particular that one. Was that before the charges were made?
Yeah, it was before the charges were made. Arnie, a friend of the show, posted that on social media today, that one with the head circled. And there'd been no charges levied by then. So it was wait and see. And then, of course, charges were levied against both clubs. And if that is an offence for more than 2 players or whatever it is to surround the referee, then both clubs should have been charged with the offence, because it happened on Wednesday night. But it also happens almost every game, every week. And where's the other team's charges? What do they do? I don't know. So I don't know why us and Man City are different now, because you don't see any other teams being charged with it.
Or is it just an Arsenal thing, and because they were playing Man City and they wanted to show us that they were being fair, they charged Man City as well? I don't know. Look, 67 minutes in, Dan, there was a tactical change. Ruben Diaz pressed more. There was a change around they moved... who was it? Was playing left back, and he was moved to wing back. Bernardo Silva was played left back. He was moved up the pitch, and that type of prevented us from playing. You put this down as one of the things that it stopped Odegaard from playing in the midfield. It forced us to change our tactics.
Yeah, I think what we did well in the first half was we were finding spaces, and we're finding half spaces between the lines because of the way that Zinchenko likes to come inside and create a box effect and link up with the wide men and create triangles. But City, although I think they're the way they're set up to try to be man for man, they couldn't actually match us. And I think the defence wasn't pressing as much from Man City. And I think one of the big differences that Pep even said was they was a lot more aggressive in their press. And just giving Ruben Diaz license to come out and close them down quicker meant the others could jump and push on to our back line. And I think we saw a big difference in how we were trying to play out from the back. And that forced sort of mistakes from our own team. I don't think it was a great finish from them from the 3rd goal, but most of what they did City came from our mistakes. And I think that tactical change was quite a big part of that in the second half.
Now, let's look at that goal then. So 72 minutes in, Haaland is sent scampering into a bit of space down the right. He's sent by Silva, took advantage of Gabriel's poor pass. Haaland then thinks about shooting, but he passes infield to Guendoan and then dummies for Grealish. A good move, Trev?
Yeah, well, of course it was a good move. But as we said just now, a top Arsenal fan, John Williamson, I'm happy to say a friend of mine mentioned it on social media today. We showed our naivety and maybe a little lack in our experience in that when that sub came on, like Dan just said, they pressed us. They did. I think the words John used were they moved the game 10 metres up the field. You know, they started playing the game 10 yards further up the field, which meant they were a lot closer to our fullbacks as soon as the game started or commenced from the back, which
set us in a bit of a panic, and we didn't know how to play around that or over that or through that. We just didn't have the skills to do that. Once again, I think Jesus might have made a difference because Jesus moves people around a lot more than Eddie does. Jesus would have created space and maybe with the movement he was making, made them drop off a bit. Again, but they didn't. They were able to start the field, and it was a good move, Ferg. You can't deny a good goal when you see a good goal. Man City were very good on the night, But having said that, we weren't far behind them.
No, Dan, looking at again at the move, you'll see at the very end, Tomiyasu's Ramsdale is a little unfortunate as well because it takes a slight deflection of Tomiyasu's thigh. I don't think you'll see the close up on that, but you'll have seen it when you watch back the game.
I think Ramsdale saves it if he doesn't get a deflection. I think that's harsh to criticise Tommy because he's doing all he can to get in the way of the ball.
Correct.
The issue for me is you give away the ball in our final third, and City are such a clinical side. And I know they're very good in short passes and controlling the game, but when they get an opportunity to go, they go. And just like that, when they see space, they play the ball to it, and more spaces open up because we're trying to cover spaces, and they create gaps.
Yeah. Exactly. Ferg, we can compare that right back to the one we spoke about earlier when Eddie didn't see Martinelli in the middle for a tap-in. That goal there, Haaland knew that the better chance was to his left. The player in space was to his left, and he made sure that the player that was in the best position to score a goal got the ball. And we didn't do that when we had our chance. We failed to do that, And that's probably the bit of a difference between the two sides, mate.
I didn't put that clip up because I didn't want to have a digging on further on Eddie. But Martinelli clearly looked a little bit frustrated. And I know somebody put something up on Twitter and it was a bit more harsh. But, that is, I think maybe shows the connection relationship that Jesus and Martinelli have, which is slightly probably better. Well, I feel from looking at some things than the Nketiah and Martinelli cohesion. Dan, do you think the Nketiah and Trossard, because Trossard comes on from Martinelli in 76 minutes, do you think that's better than the Martinelli Nketiah one?
Well, I think firstly the chance that Eddie had to pass the ball to Martinelli, I think is a bit harsh to criticise Eddie because I feel like it was a lot different to Haaland for the third goal. Haaland had a bit more space to play the ball. Eddie was being closed down and the space where he would play the pass was being closed down a lot quicker. So something that was really interesting I watched yesterday from the King, Thierry. He mentioned that he had to adapt his game to play with certain players in the team. And he would always make the same run time in, time out, because that was what he was good at. And what he said was he learned to make runs depending on who was on the ball. And he knew that when Bergkamp got on the ball, wherever he ran, Bergkamp would find him. He knew that whenever Robbie Perez had the ball, he had to go short because he wanted to play a 1-2. Whenever Lundberg had the ball, he had to make a certain run in his eye line or he wouldn't find him. And I feel like Eddie still needs to find that, where he needs to be able to not just do what he's good at, which is being in the box and being a poacher. He needs to see what the team around him are good at and where they want to play the ball and make the run for the team as opposed to just for himself.
Trev?
He undoubtedly is a brilliant goal poacher. Undoubtedly. He's proven that with his goal scoring. He's scored so many in and around the 6-yard area, tapping it in, knocking it in. Absolutely is a great goal poacher. But does that fit into our system? We need to move on now. It sounds like we're on the poor lad's back all the time.
No. We're
talking about the game,
Yeah, no, it's just generally comparing one sort of move to another, and some people have talked about it, and we're talking about it. As you said at the very beginning, we don't try and be negging out on players. We try and look at it a bit objectively and try, to look for some positives out of some negatives. And I think there is a lot of positives to take out of the game. Before we go into that, though, Haaland at 3-1.
I was just going to say, Ferg, that I don't take that as a negative because I take that as Eddie has room to grow. It's just there are things that you need to develop coming into a side. And Jorginho is another prime example. I think Jorginho had a very, very good game. But it's also clear still that he hasn't got the cohesion with the team members around him yet because he's new to the team. And that only develops over time by playing game after game after game with the same team. So he will learn to do that, I think.
Like Jorginho, for me, I thought the first half he had a really good first half. Second half, because of the change in formation, he wasn't in the game as much. But he didn't have a bad game, and he's definitely an upgrade on the outgoing Lukonga as he was at the time. But rather than get into all of that, we look at Haaland's goal. So here comes Haaland's goal. I'll turn the sound off again. So it's 82 minutes. De Bruyne bursts into the box down the right, chasing Gundogan's pass. De Bruyne cuts back for Haaland, who takes a touch and threads a wonderful shot across Ramsdale into the bottom left. Again, we've come to see Haaland to do this. He hasn't been scoring prolific as much recently because I think where City went through their little bit of a blip spell, they didn't know how to deal with him. They were type of playing the ball still wide where he wants balls put in like that. Trev, what did you make of Haaland's last goal?
Yeah, he got the chance and he put it away, didn't he? To be honest, by that time, my head had dropped a bit because I didn't think we were going to score another goal for love nor money. That, as we said just now, that last part of the game, Man City took over and looked a champion side. You've got to say it. I hate to say it. You've got to say it. You can see there's no weak spots in their play. I mean, Grealish was on fire when he was on the field. And Haaland is there, and Haaland's going to take those chances as he's shown all season. The only time I've seen Haaland get rattled was it against Brighton when they just kicked him about the park for the first 15 or 20 minutes and he spat his dummy out and disappeared. But that's the only bad game I've seen him really have. So
he didn't have a great game against Spurs because they just Man City didn't play to his strengths either. So So the final bit, 84 minutes, Tommy and Xhaka replaced by Vieira and White. Bear in mind we got Martinelli taken off for Trossard in 76 minutes. The question I'll ask you, Dan, is were those substitutions made too late in that game? Should we have made substitutions maybe at 67 minutes when we saw that the tactics were changed by Pep on the pitch by moving players around?
Yeah, I think we said in the stadium, I think the one I would have made earlier was the Trossard sub. I felt like it was the time to do it. It's difficult with the midfield because when you've got a midfield three that was so settled and you've got Partey out of that midfield three, I think he's reluctant to make another change in that midfield three that have been so good for us all season. So, Xhaka being the prime example, I think at the time he took him off, he'd probably gone through a bad sort of 10-minute spell. And I think that prompted the sub for him. But I can still see why you would keep him on the field because he's been so good and he is such a big leader for our team. So that is hard to take Xhaka off. And then your captain, Odegaard, at that moment, you want him on the pitch. So I can see why he didn't make those subs till later.
I don't know if I agree with Terry on there about playing Martinelli through the middle. If I was going to play anybody through the middle of Martinelli or Trossard, I'd probably go with Trossard because Martinelli he always sticks to the wing.
Right. The interest, Dan's generated a question for me there, Ferg. I agree with bringing Trossard earlier on, Dan, but would you have brought him on for Martinelli or a different player?
Yeah, Martinelli. I think I said when I was chatting to Fergus in the ground, we said, will he bring him on for Xhaka or who will he bring him on for? And for me, the only option was for Martinelli, just because he works so hard, Gabby, at times that if you want to keep up that level of intensity, he can't be doing that for 90 minutes. So I can see why he doesn't play 90 minutes all the time. And also I felt like Walker had actually mastered him quite well in that game. Walker is a tough opponent. So I can see why he wanted to change it. And also Trossard, as we said a couple of times, when he plays wide, he drifts inside and he comes into spaces inside. And he would have been an extra number in the midfield to try and near enough counter the City tactical change. So that could have been the thought process behind why Arteta brought him on.
So guys, in summary, look, the two game goals were against the run of play. We dominated possession, but we lacked composure at the right times. We were able to improve the game impose on a top side. We just need to be better in both boxes, both defending and also shooting, which we've talked about a lot. But this graphic here just shows the dominance that Arsenal had in the game. So you can see it was a very early in the start. City came at us. We then rose into the game. City scored the goal. We get the second goal. Then you got half time. In the second half, as we said, City came out. They were a bit stronger. We started to get control of the game. City went again. But then towards the end of the game, before they got the third, and that's probably why they got the third goal, we were pushing up to try and get an equaliser. And we was just saying like a 2-2. In fairness, for me, I thought a 2-2 would have been a very, very good result. The other stats to look on the game is we had 63% possession. It was Man City's lowest game in possession, I think, this season. They had 5 shots on target. We had 0 shots on target. Again, there's the biggest issue in that area of the box. We did create 9 attempts against their 4. So with the equal number of attempts effectively on goal, but they had 5 of theirs on target. Final thoughts on the game, Trev?
Yeah, you're right, Fergus. I don't think a draw would have flattered us. I thought we were as good a team for long parts of the game. I've said enough now where I thought my problem was. The stat there showing shots on target sort of backs it up a little bit if you look at it in a certain way. I agree with Terry to bring Trossard in, but I would honestly, looking at this weekend coming, I would honestly give Eddie a rest, bring Trossard in through the middle and play Martinelli on the left of him. And what Trossard would do, he'd give us a lot more movement up front, just outside the box. He'll be out and about and around the box, and he's quick. So and 3 games now without the result we wanted, we've got to be looking at doing something. But at the end of the day, we're the Arsenal. We've got a great manager. We still go top of the league if we win our game in hand. We still be top of the league if VAR was used properly. So it ain't all bad news, boys. I'd have still took this at the start of the season. Absolutely still took this at the start of the season. You know? And that breaking news, Lee Mason quits. Well, good. I hope he don't get a payoff. That was the only manly thing to do, was to resign. That he's done the right thing. Credit where it's due there. He's done the right thing.
Lots of people stayed back in the North Bank and clapped the team off to the very end. Odegaard and Jorginho were the last 2 to walk around, and they didn't do that thing where they just walk outside the centre circle. Odegaard came right up to us at the end. Some areas of the ground were empty, but the majority of the North Bank, upper and lower, I commented to you, Dan, that it was quite full. Yeah, it's a late kickoff. Yes, people have to get places, and anybody who criticises anybody having to leave for any reason, sort yourself out first before anything else. But it was really good to see our captain come up and actually genuinely spend some time walking around. Didn't you think, Dan?
And also tap the badge as he went round was a nice gesture. It shows that they appreciate what the fans try to do in the game, and also for the fans to stay shows it appreciates the effort from the players. I think that's one thing we absolutely can't fault the team now is the effort. You know, a few years ago, we'd be watching games thinking, are they really putting their all in for this club, or are they just there to pick up a paycheck? And no doubt they do it because it's their job first and foremost, as anyone does, to earn money. But they look like they want to play for the Arsenal and not just play football for anyone.
No. Yeah. Dan, myself and yourself.
So here we are. Arsenal have just been beaten 3-1 by Man City. With Dan, we're not very happy. We're not very good losers, are we, Dan?
I don't know what to say.
That's about a 3-minute video. You can catch it on the Facebook page if you want. But Flat as a Pancake is what we call the podcast tonight. And it was on the back of how we both felt walking to the train station afterwards. It was flat. And you said that you've changed a feeling about some of your comments since we spoke on that.
Yeah, well, as you can see by that video, I'm full of charisma, and that's my best sort of attribute, if I'm totally honest. But as everyone was, very disappointed. And generally, I think as we all are, we're quite positive on here. And since the Leeds game in October, I've thought we're going to win the league. And I come out of that game and I just thought, I just don't know how we're going to win it now because I feel like momentum's changed. But watching the game back, I think we were take the mistakes out of it. The best team. We have to just stop those mistakes and we have to take our chances. But football changes so much, and there isn't a single team that's won the league without having a little blip. And up until the last 3 games, we hadn't had a blip. So this is our first blip. City will have another blip. We may have another blip. And there's, 17 games or so, 16, 17 games left still. Lots of football to play. Lots could happen. It could be as simple as one injury for Man City changes it. It could be that they run away with it. No one knows. But all we need to do is go a game at a time, put points on the board and see where it gets us by the end of the season. And I still feel like something can happen. I don't think the players are going to be giving up. Our manager won't be letting them give up. Let's just, as fans, make sure that we don't give up as well.
Conscious of time, Grealish post-match interview said City didn't play well. Arsenal were the better team. Pep was very complimentary of us. Quite a lot of the Man City side made comments along the lines of Arsenal are an excellent team. Some of them commented that they reminded them of City of 5 years ago, and that this Arsenal, many pundits have said this Arsenal, if they don't win the league this year, they're definitely, this Arsenal side are winning the league. That you can see something growing. We'll talk briefly whether we see if we can still win the league. But first, before we do that, Arsenal versus Aston Villa, 12:30 on Saturday. I'm picking you up in the morning, nice and early. We're getting down to Birmingham. Sorry, all the Brummies, I've just done your accent badly. But people say how many early starts have we won? But there's a stat that came out by Opta. We played 12 games. We won 6, drawn 2. So that's reasonably good. 4 losses, which was the Everton one. We've scored 17 goals and conceded 13 goals. The one that I recall the most, and probably the last one maybe as a 12:30 kickoff, was against Chelsea, Trev. It was a 1-0. Could have been 6-0. We were outstanding.
Absolutely outstanding, Fergus. Absolutely outstanding. 12:30 kickoffs. Don't worry about them. Don't worry about them. I know you're going to go in a minute, so I'm going to get my little rant in now, Fergus. Well, my little thing. Firstly, we mentioned the train zone, Fergus, right? And I'll go down on there now and say that I left the game before the end on Wednesday, not because I wanted to, but it was a night game. I had to get the 10 o'clock train out of King's Cross. If I miss, and off of that 10 o'clock train, I got home at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I had to be up for work at 7. If I miss that 10 o'clock train, I don't get home till 2 o'clock in the morning, So as much as I love to stay, and I stay with every game I can stay, I stay till the end and after the end. And I'm in the pub after. But don't knock people that have to leave early. I had no option on Wednesday but to leave early, And the other thing, Ferg, that we've not mentioned that we've got to get in for just about 30 seconds, mate, is the Europa League. The Europa League draws next Friday. We find out who we play. I can't remember who it was. Oh, well, you've just said you were going to close the show. Make your mind up, will you?
I'm not quite. We haven't done the Villa game yet. You're ranting on about Europe. Listen, very, very quickly then, Trev, while you're in the seat, do you change anything with the lineups against Villa? And who do you see the key threats from Villa? And then give me your score. No, don't give me your score prediction just yet. Just change the lineups and key threats.
I don't care who. I'd like to see Trossard playing the side. I don't have to name who I think I'd like him to come in for, but I think Trossard is worth a start. I think after 3 poor results, we need a bit of a lift, and bringing Trossard in for his first full game will probably bring that lift. Who's a threat from Aston Villa? I don't know. Who plays for Aston Villa? I don't know. I don't watch that rubbish.
Heinz Martinez, apparently.
I just hope that Martinez cries in his gloves again like he did last season. That'll do for me.
Dan, form guide. We played 30. We've played 55 games against them, 130. Away wins 13, home wins 17. So on paper, football isn't played on paper. We should be beating Aston Villa. You were there last? No, you weren't. It was Bournemouth. I remember seeing you. Last season was 2-1. That was the Super Mikel Arteta song came out. We beat them 1-0 at our place beforehand. And the form guide, where we are at the moment. Similar sort of form. Unai Emery's had made a difference to the Villa side. I believe they're nobody but Arsenal have gained as many points as Unai Emery's Aston Villa. Do you think Unai could cause us a problem?
He's going to want to, isn't he? He's going to want to prove the people wrong that let him go and prove that he can be a top Premier League manager. But we've got bigger fish to fry than to worry about things like Unai and Aston Villa. We're worrying about winning the league. So we've got an opportunity for an early kickoff to say to the team, let's put the pressure back on City. Let's go back top and say to them, come on in now, respond. We're up for it and we're not giving up. So last season at Villa was a big part of us kicking on to get some good results. It's an opportunity to do it again. But again, we are playing against a good side. Ollie Watkins will be physical, will be tough to play against. Eric Bayer will be running in behind. So they've got a good combination there that they've started to develop under Unai. And they do have a good side, although I think they might be missing Tyrone Mings, I think. So Chambers may even come on and play. I think he played the last game. Their fullbacks are good. You know, Matty Cash, when he plays, is a good fullback. Luca Dean also left back, and who's the guy they've just signed from the Spanish league. So they've got some good threats in their team. I think start early, front foot, early goal is key, and then bring the points back.
Yeah, calm the nerves down. Give me a score prediction then.
2-1.
Trev?
I think we're coming flying back 3-0 to the Arsenal. I think we're coming flying back into form. Whoosh! Look at this Villa. Unai Emery is a fantastic manager, but sorry, Unai, you're gone on tomorrow. The boys are going to be right up for it, our lads. We're going to win. We are absolutely going to win. 3-0.
I'm going to go to 2-0 to Arsenal. You mentioned UEFA. The draw, the Europa League draw will be this week, this time next week, 12 o'clock lunchtime. This could happen again.
From the Cali to the cross and every shithole in between. Past the church, the mosque, the crack den, and the offie on the corner. See the brass from the brothel that pretends to be a sauna. Watch the bedlam in the bookies, see the winners and the losers seeking solace from their sorrow in the local battle cruisers. Through the madness in the market where with faces turn to greet you. Hello governor, how's your mother? You're a Sunday lucky geezer. Double player, mashing liquor. Couple of rubies in the old chat. Porch, retired gangsters pick up every day and after scaff. The little fuck who's causing trouble for the cause make you smile. You're meeting muckers for a couple. Forget your troubles for a while. From the fall to the heaven, all the faces are the same. Cause the man might be changing, but the people still remain. North London forever. Whatever the weather, these streets are our own. And my heart will leave you never. My blood will forever run through the storm.
Yeah, the European tour. Dan, you've already booked the time off. Diary-wise, it might be a little bit difficult for me, but yeah, I'm looking forward to going all the way to Budapest.
Absolutely. One game at a time, though.
Absolutely.
If we're honest, if I'm honest with myself, you boys might not agree, but at this very moment in time, I think that probably the Europa League is our best chance of a title of a trophy this year. If I'm blatantly honest, I don't want it to be. I want us to come out flying tomorrow, flying against Leicester. That puts us back above City. And who knows? Who knows? It's football. It's a funny old game, they used to say.
It is a funny old game. Very quick question then, because Lauren said it at the very beginning. Could the Europa League then, Trev, scupper our chances of a Premier League title?
I'd like to think not, Fergus. You can make a case that it could do, but I'd like to think not. I think we're good enough. We've got the decent squad now. We got We've got some players to come in, which I don't mind doing in the Europa League under the right circumstances. No, I'm hoping we're not going to lose focus. Although, having said that, you can very much make a case for it because of the World Cup break. We've got so many league games to fit in, haven't we? You know, so you can make a case that it could scupper our title chances, but it could also be the same for all the other teams. So we're all in the same boat, and I'd love to see us win the league, but I honestly think that the Europa League is the one that we've got best chance of winning. Best chance of winning. Let me put it that way. I want to see us win both. I'd love to see us win the league. And I said it before, Fergus, right? And I speak at my age. We speak different. We're all good mates, us three, and other people as well. But me being that bit older, right? I honestly thought that I wouldn't see our side challenge for the league again 3 or 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I thought we were that poor. I thought we were gone for a long, long time. So I'm in a great place now at my age, enjoying what's happening. I want to see us win the league and I want to see us win the Europa League. But if you really ask me to be honest, I think our best chance lays in Europa this year. And I'll be there to watch every game.
Very briefly, Dan, you know why? Very, very briefly. What do you think? Where would you be targeting all your efforts out, the majority of your efforts?
I've actually got quite a lot to say on this topic now. So
you carry on with that now, but I'll turn the camera off for a second then.
I think it's a good question. Can it scupper us or not? I think it could, but I also think it could help us. And one thing that I think we've seen with other games this year is that if we win them, it helps build momentum. Whereas if we don't take it serious enough and we lose a key tie, we could lose any momentum we build up around that time. So I think as a top side, you need to get used to playing twice a week. And I think that's the message from Mikel to the team. So I think go for both. I wouldn't be sort of discarding it. I also, from my point of view, I think I'd still prioritise the league with a couple of changes.
Okay. Me, I want to see us pick up the Premier League first and foremost, concentrate on that. If it happens that I have to sell a kidney or something like that, not that you want my kidneys, but if I have to sell a kidney to get a ticket while I'm out in Budapest, regardless, that would be absolutely fantastic. But the Premier League coming to the Emirates, it needs a major trophy. It needs the Premier League, and then what the fans have done this season and last season, they've made it home, they've made it a fortress, get that big trophy, and then all the rest, all the other stuff that people go on about is done. Guys, thank you very much for joining us on a Friday night. Can you believe it? I think Irish Mick said Guns and Yellow Ribbons Friday night and a beer. Couldn't get any better. And thank you for saying that, Irish Mick. If you like what we do, you know what to do. Click on the like and subscribe. We'll always be on YouTube now because Facebook have just scuppered us completely. So cheers, Irish Mick. Early start for us tomorrow. And I'm pretty well. Last night I was down in London with my brothers. Wednesday night I was at the football. Tonight I'm on here. Tomorrow I'm at the football again. And then I think the wife's out for dinner on Sunday. So I'm going to have to go downstairs and spend some time with the wife. Trev, thanks very much, mate.
Not a problem, mate. Look, Melanie knows as well, right? Melanie K knows. Good friend of the show, Melanie. She knows. 3-0 to the Arsenal tomorrow. And we're not going to, let's just put it this way. Let's not prioritise any competition, right? Let's just go and bloody win them all, eh? Every bloody one of them. Because we are the Arsenal.
You've been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons and Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too.